One of the quietest ways women abandon themselves isn't by loving the wrong man. It's by trying to become the reason he chooses them. We convince, approve, become endlessly patient, become understanding. We become low maintenance. We tell ourselves that if we're loving enough, if we're supportive enough, if we're patient enough, eventually he'll realize what he has. And here's the uncomfortable truth. A healthy relationship cannot be built on persuasion. It has to be built on two people who freely choose one another. Because the moment one person begins carrying the emotional weight of the relationship quietly stops belonging to both people. It belongs to one. And today I want to talk about one of the most overlooked reasons relationships lose their spark. Not because love disappeared, it's because somewhere along the way, one person stopped choosing and the other person started carrying. By the end of this video, you'll understand why real commitment can never be forced, why genuine masculine leadership can never be borrowed, and why the safest relationships are the ones where both people wake up every day and continue choosing each other. But before we begin, if you're a woman who wants to build healthy love without abandoning yourself, I'd love to invite you into my private community, House of Swans. Inside, we help women heal unhealthy relationship patterns, understand masculine and feminine psychology, strengthen emotional resilience, and become women who attract healthy relationships from the place of peace rather than fear. And if you're ready for that journey, you'll find the link in the description below. Now, let's begin. You cannot become someone else's decision. One of the biggest misconceptions about love is believing that effort creates commitment. It doesn't. Effort creates movement. Commitment creates direction. And those are two very different things. I've coached thousands of women over the years. One story has stayed with me. A woman came to me after being in a relationship for nearly 20 years. From the outside, everything looked stable. They owned a home. They went on holidays. Friends thought they were the perfect couple. But privately, she said something that broke my heart. She said, "I feel like I have been dragging this relationship uphill for years." As we unpacked their story, a pattern began to emerge. She planned the dates, she initiated difficult conversations, she pushed for exclusivity, she suggested moving in together, she kept the relationship progressing every time it became stagnant. Every milestone had quietly been carried by her. It wasn't a partnership, she was in a project. And the tragedy wasn't that she loved too much. The tragedy was that she slowly became responsible for a decision that only he could make. Imagine pushing a car uphill. At first, it moves. You convince yourself everything is working. But the moment you stop pushing, it rolls backward. Not because you weren't strong enough, but because the movement never came from the engine. Relationships work exactly the same way. If one person has to keep pushing, eventually you discover what was actually moving the relationship all along. Here's the lesson. You cannot become someone else's decision. They have to make that decision themselves. Human beings don't usually change when life is comfortable. We change when comfort is no longer enough. Think about your own life. How many of your greatest lessons came during season when everything was easy? Probably very few. Most of us grow after disappointment, heartache, failure, loss. Growth asks us to confront ourselves. Relationships are no different. One client told me she spent years protecting her partner from every uncomfortable emotion. If he forgot something important, she made excuses. If he canceled plans, she rearranged hers. If he stopped putting effort into the relationship, she simply gave more. She believed she was being loving. What she didn't realize was that she was removing every natural consequence of his behavior. Imagine a young tree that's permanently tied to a support post. At first, the support is helpful, but it's never removed. The tree never learns to stand on its own. Sometimes what looks like support quietly becomes dependence, and sometimes rescuing delays growth. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for another adult is to allow them to experience the consequences of their own choices. The lesson is this. Love does not require you to protect someone from becoming who they choose to be. Freedom is what makes love real. One of the questions I ask women inside my House of Swans is this. If he removed obligation from the relationship, would he still choose it? It's a difficult question because genuine love requires freedom. A relationship where someone stays only because they feel guilty isn't secure. It's heavy. It's why so many couples live like polite roommates. No arguments, passion, intimacy, no emotional connection, just routine. I remember speaking with a gentleman after the end of a very long relationship. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He simply said something that stayed with me. "I don't know if I ever actually chose this life. It just happened. These words were heartbreaking, not only for him, but for the woman who had unknowingly carried them there. Imagine standing at the edge of a river. You can hold someone's hand and invite them to cross, but you cannot carry another adult across the bridge for the rest of their life. Eventually, you have to decide to walk. Real love is never built on obligation. It's built on freedom, because being chosen means so much more when someone is genuinely free to walk away. Stop asking whether he chooses you. Start asking whether you're choosing yourself. This is where everything changes. The healthiest women I have ever coached don't spend their lives wondering whether they're enough. They become women whose lives are already full of purpose, peace, friendship, faith, growth, joy. Their identity isn't waiting for someone else's decision. I once coached a woman whose entire week revolved around one text message. If he replied, she was happy. If he didn't, her anxiety took over. Months later, she came back completely transformed, not because he had changed, because she had. She started traveling, connecting with old friends, started volunteering. She built a business she'd dreamt about for years. One day she smiled. She said something I'll never forget. For the first time in years, I'm no longer waiting for my life to begin when someone chooses me. That's the shift. The healthiest relationships aren't built because one person convinced another to stay. They're built because every day two people continue making the same choice: to love, respect, commit, not from pressure, not from guilt, but from freedom. Because the most beautiful words in any relationship aren't "I had no choice." They're "I choose you," again and again and again. But there's another conversation we still need to have, because what happens when a man does choose you, yet months or years later he slowly begins pulling away? Most women think that he's fallen out of love. In reality, the answer is often much deeper than that. There's subtle mistakes that slowly erode emotional attraction over time, and most couples never even see them happening until the distance already feels great. In the next video, I'm going to show you why men sometimes emotionally withdraw from relationships they genuinely wanted, and more importantly, what healthy women do differently to keep emotional connection alive without chasing, controlling, or losing themselves. Because until you understand that, today's conversation isn't complete. I'll see you in my next video. In the meantime, do take care of you. Love you lots.